Welcome into Northside Territory, presented by Fox One Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at The Athletic. Patrick, we know the Cubs are going to be active in the pitching market, whether it's trade, whether it's signing free agents, whatever it may be. They are always looking for pitching. It doesn't matter what type of season they're coming off of. You have to be active in the pitching market if you want to be competitive. Pitching depth is essential. The pitching staff was solid, if unspectacular, I guess is how I'd describe it. Like a lot of trusted guys in there. You feel comfortable with a lot of these guys, but also they were lacking stuff. They were lacking strikeouts in the starting rotation. And they're always rebuilding the bullpen. That's just kind of how it's going to go for the foreseeable future. On this episode, let's touch on five guys, and they kind of like all fit a mold in a sense. And maybe each guy is representative of maybe it's not just that one guy, but like a category or something like that. This is what they're going to pursue. Trade candidates, I think, are going to be really interesting this year. It seems like there's some big names that may be out there. One name of a team that's selling, that seems like they're selling, Minnesota Twins. Joe Ryan is a name that we heard during the deadline. Joe Ryan is the type of pitcher that I think would fit just brilliantly with the Cubs. And exactly what they're looking for. High strikeout rate, doesn't walk guys, and then just like front of the rotation stuff. Really what the Cubs could use.
Yeah, and our buddy Dan Hayes in Minnesota covered that fire sale, which really was kind of wild because I was in Minnesota in early July, and I'm pretty sure they won a series against the Cubs and looked pretty good and thought they were maybe making a case to not sell at the deadline. And there's been all this ownership uncertainty there, and it just doesn't make much sense to me if the ownership group takes on some investors and takes the franchise off the market, and if the front office makes all of these wholesale changes at the major league level, including firing a manager who did a pretty good job on balance over the years. Like, if you're starting over, why do you keep this guy around? I'm still not sure like what the Cubs have to offer in terms of like, if you're going to be kind of building around Owen Casey and Moises Ballesteros as part of a post Kyle Tucker plan. You outlined this very well around the trade deadline of like the Cubs don't have a lot of those sort of like far away guys that are easier to trade, and like the middle of their system isn't quite there. It's just very top heavy with those sort of AAA Iowa Wrigley adjacent prospects that you need throughout the course of the season. And pitching wise, there's just not a lot of like intrigue there at this point. Now that can change relatively quickly, but outside of maybe Jackson Wiggins, and obviously Cade Horton is a leading rookie of the year candidate, but other than that, there's not a ton of like super interesting young pitching if you're trying to entice the Twins to make that deal.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's not as easy as we want this guy, let's go get him. There are, how do they decide what they're going to do with those prospects? How do they decide, are they going to bring a veteran in as far as a position player to allow them to trade some guys? Or does it, that's, we talked about Alex Bregman, the potential reunion with Kyle Tucker seems like a huge long shot. You bring in a veteran, a trusted veteran, then you feel more comfortable trading someone like Owen Casey or even Matt Shaw or Moises Ballesteros. You don't love it because these are major league talents right now, guys that can play in the big leagues right now and have. And you don't. That's tough to give up if you're in this if you're trying to be this team that's constantly churning out talent and constantly, has a long window of success, there's you need that young talent. And Jed Hoyer loves to talk about how, young talent is the lifeblood of an organization. If you're constantly trading those guys away, it makes it a little more difficult to have sustained success. Joe Ryan under control for 2 years. That's something that makes it a little bit more palatable, maybe, to give up prospects for him. He will be going into his age 30 season. That's probably a knock against him. So these aren't easy decisions, and these aren't things that I think are layups. Free agency may be the better route to go. It may just be what they end up doing. Let's put our next player under the DraftKings spotlight. All right, Patrick. Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease is going to be our DraftKings player spotlight. He is, a former Cubs prospect, part of that draft class with Justin Steele. Traded in the big Jose Quintana deal, and he's, when you talk about strikeouts, you're talking about a guy like Dylan Cease. He's coming off a down season. I think that's kind of the question, right? What is his price? I don't think it matters that he's coming off a down season, in the sense that the Cubs don't care. If they believe he can perform, if they believe he can be a solid pitcher, then hey, go get him if the price is right. I think that's the debate that we need to focus on. What's the price here for Dylan Cease?
I almost think his down season makes him more attractive to the Cubs, just knowing how they think and how they project out potential deals, the cost. For me, I think the stuff, the durability, the background they have on him is really appealing. Which probably means the Cubs won't do this. If I think this is a good idea, they probably are going to say, well, last I checked, he's a Scott Boras guy, unless something has changed recently. He's been with Scott Boras for quite some time. And the Cubs don't have they have an okay relationship with him, but I don't think they're first calls for each other. I'm assuming he'll be attached with a qualifying offer, which will be a lot of these pitchers kind of in this bucket, which I think will give the Cubs some pause. But when you talk to people in the Cubs organization throughout the years, as we have done, just had these different checkpoints, whether it's that Kyle Schwarber draft class and his below slot deal, which allowed them to take Justin Steele and Dylan Cease out of high school, or some of the people who dealt with Cease during his rehab program. He underwent Tommy John as a Cub. I believe that was almost like the plan, basically, when they drafted him, but that they would supervise him. And people raved about his work ethic and his commitment. He was someone who was very intrigued by some of these new pitching concepts and new pitching technology that the Cubs were bringing on board around that time. So I think there's kind of a lot to work with there. Having said that, the Padres are also known as a very progressive pitching organization with some great instructors and a really good pitching environment. So it's not like you're taking him from the Washington Nationals and thinking all of a sudden we can unlock something here.
Yeah.
But I don't know, you've got to at least explore this opportunity and see where it leads.
Yeah, I think it's all about what his market ends up being. It's going to be hard to assume, to think this guy's going to get be looking for a bounce back type deal. You mentioned durability. 32 starts in 2021, 32, 33, 33, and then 32 in 2025. I mean, he's out there every start. The ERA is elevated, but the strikeout rate is pushing 30%. He does walk guys, but that's just Dylan Cease has had success walking guys. When you strike out nearly 30% of the batters you face, it's okay to have a walk rate pushing 10%. You'll figure it out. He's, playing in Wrigley Field probably beneficial to him. But I think it would be all about like what type of contract is he willing to take? Is he looking for 2 or 3 years? Is that the type of deal he's looking for? I'd be very surprised. He's going to be entering his age 30 season, I believe. He'll be turning 30 over the offseason this December. So like this is probably a 5-year deal. And when you start talking about that at the price that, how much strikeouts cost nowadays, I just, I don't see him being in the price range that the Cubs are looking for. I could be wrong. Maybe maybe the market doesn't materialize for him because people are concerned about this past season. I'd be surprised. Are the Cubs the only team that are going to look past these things? No, there are other teams that see like, hey, we're not that worried about the 4 whatever ERA it was because we think the strikeouts will play and we can do this, blah, 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 whatever. So that's my general thought on whether it would make sense. Like it makes complete sense, but whether that contract is going to make sense, I just don't, and you mentioned probably the biggest factor of them all. It's Scott Boras, unless he's looking for Cody Bellinger type deal, something like that, opt-outs or anything like that. I'd just be surprised. We don't have a clear idea on the market yet for him. All right, let's throw it to Alana Rizzo for our Northside Territory pick.
All right, thanks, Sahadev. Appreciate it. My World Series Game 1 pick is the Dodgers to win by 2 at plus 113. Forget the Dodgers rust on the road in a raucous ballpark. I'll take the series favorites to pick up where they left off against the Brewers. I put $100 on the Dodgers run line minus 1.5, so to win by 2 at plus 113. Sahadev and Patrick, back to you.
October baseball is here. The pressure's on, the lights are brighter, and with DraftKings Sportsbook, you're right there in the middle of every moonshot moment. DraftKings Sportsbook delivers the intensity of October with player props, live in-game betting, and odds that can change as fast as a ball flying over the fence. New customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get paid out $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FOUL. That's code FOUL to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, pass-through of per-wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
Patrick, I think we went over these names. I think this is the perfect Cubs name as far as what they do, what type of deal he may be looking for. Michael King. Michael King, when he's right, he strikes guys out. When he's healthy, he has good peripherals. He has good results. He's a really good starting pitcher. He's coming off an injury, and he didn't pitch a ton this past season. 73 and a third innings in 15 starts. But he's got kind of what you're looking for when it comes to what the Cubs pursue. I'd be surprised if he's getting like a 5 or 6 year deal or anything like that. And it's probably going to be a couple of years, and you take not a huge AAV, but maybe a decent one, maybe a little bit more than Jameson Taillon. Who knows? But this is the profile you're looking for when you're talking about players that the Cubs may pursue.
Without a doubt, I think you laid that out really well for our listeners in terms of when you're trying to understand rumors or where the front office is going or how they're evaluating stuff. Like, this guy is sort of it. And, he came up with the Yankees. I think he was not drafted by the Yankees. Sorry, I just had it up here on baseball. So he wasn't
drafted by the Marlins.
Drafted by the Marlins, but he came up and through that Yankee system, which the Cubs time and time again have sort of targeted. Like, we like what they do and kind of the attributes that they seek out and tease out through development. I also give him credit just kind of following his career from afar. Like, seems like someone who really advocated for himself and believed that he can and should be a major league starting pitcher, which to me, I think shows some of that intelligence that the Cubs are looking for. I think that we've talked to Tommy Sahadev about this before, of like, they seem to have this type in free agency, and what do they want? It's pitchability, baseball IQ, a willingness to learn, a strong work ethic. And obviously, you want your team to just be the Dodgers and just go out and spend the most money and sign the best players, period. It doesn't always work like that. I mean, even the Dodgers have to get creative and be diligent and stay on top of things. And I think King sort of is that profile. I'll have to go back and, pull up some of our old stories on The Athletic and just kind of, you could really just cross-reference King's trajectory and what the Cubs are looking for, and you'll see a lot of matches.
Yeah, and it's, when the Padres have been talked about as kind of trying to unload players more for salary relief over the past year and a half. I don't know how long that's been now. Has that been like about 2 years now that they've been kind of in that area of maybe they need to lower their total costs? Michael King was a name that we'd heard bandied about. Would the Cubs be interested? Is this a guy that, and yes, he fits well with everything that the Cubs are looking for. I think he'd fit well in that clubhouse. I believe he was a teammate with Jameson Tyone, and they go way back and they're close. I just think it makes a ton of sense. This one, reliever, look, if you're going to make a splash, I think this is a splash name coming off a down season. I'm not sure if the price will be low enough for the Cubs because he's a reliever and he's a big name. But obviously there's a connection here. Devin Williams, coming off a season where his ERA was pushing 5, where it seemed like that changeup that he has wasn't as effective at times. Obviously, you look at peripherals, I think a great strikeout rate. Still, it was healthy. Tossed to 67 appearances, coming off of a season where he was hurt in the previous year in 2024. I guess there's a chance that he doesn't get like a 3, 4, 5-year deal or something like that, and that leads to lesser years. And I think years is probably the biggest thing. And then, probably AAV is going to be decently high. It's an interesting name because of the Craig Counsell connection, and there's he trusts him and he knows how good he can be, and there's a comfort level there, I'm sure. Is he, I think everything else is a fit. You look at all the other stuff coming off a bad year, quote unquote, in the sense that the ERA was elevated. I think he was still a pretty nasty pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, if you think Brad Keller's market's going to go to a place where, he's going to take, I don't know, like, could he get 3 years? Like, if that makes you uncomfortable, then I don't know, Devin Williams is a pretty nice option. I think we both agree they have to invest somewhere in that bullpen. Like, maybe it's not bringing back all those guys. Maybe it's not Andrew Kittredge's club option. I think you need some certainty back there. I mean, the one thing Jed Hoyer will acknowledge is that you need veteran guys who've done it before to help sort of set the tone, lead the way. We've seen Craig Counsell, and he sort of downplays a lot of this stuff, but he's heavily involved in that front office for a manager. I mean, compared to other managers in today's game. And it's not that he was, obsessing over Drew Pomeranz, but when he heard about that possibility, he gave the thumbs up, like, that would be interesting. Let's do it. And I do wonder if Williams would fit in that. Coming off of his experience in New York, I wonder if he would value maybe some familiarity or a comfort level. And I don't know, if you want a platform, if the market says you're not going to get that, crazy mega deal for a all-star closer, I don't know, going to a 92 win team where the manager and the division and would have an opportunity to rack up a ton of saves, the Cubs can offer that. They can go to any of these free agents and say, you get first crack at closing. We're not going to make you our closer. Ryan Presley was just first primary save getter, or however they did it before he imploded. But they can offer that, because I think as good as Daniel Palencia was in the playoffs and for most of the big middle chunk of the season, I don't think he's going to be handed the ninth inning next year.
To kind of push back against myself, I guess. They did trade for and then paid Ryan Presley a decent amount. They were willing to pay Tanner Scott a pretty hefty price. Would they be willing to give Devin Williams what the market bears for him? Maybe it's not as unreasonable as I initially felt, just like going over those two things. We'll see. I guess it all depends on how much do they like him, and then what is his market. And like, this is now the second time I've said that for a player. It's just kind of how things are with the Cubs. They're
I
not
think at
going
a
to win
certain
bidding
point,
wars.
though, at a certain point, though, they gotta like stretch a bit, right? And
I agree with you.
like,
Like, they can't go in. Did Ryan Presley work? No, but it wouldn't have. It just feels really uncomfortable going into a season without someone that you can say, like, okay, this guy's done it before. This guy's, or at least like a veteran who has had a lot of high leverage moments. So they're going to be in on guys like that, and Devin Williams is, a good option, as good as it gets. Frankly, if he's right, then and assuming health, assuming that they don't see any like stuff degradation, and they just generally feel good about what he can bring to the table, I see no reason why they wouldn't go after him. Or at least check in on what it costs to bring him in. All right, let's take a quick break and talk about Fox 1. All right, Patrick. The moment you've been waiting for all season has arrived. The World Series. 2 teams take the field, but only one will leave a champion. Every swing could change the game. Every play could make history. Stream the World Series live on Fox 1. It is Dodgers, Blue Jays. I believe we have Blake Snell going game 1. I don't think the Blue Jays have announced a starter as of yet. I guess it could be Kevin Gausman. I don't know off the top of my head who that could be other than him. Trey Savage, I guess, the rookie. That would be exciting to see a rookie start game 1 of the World Series. It feels like the Dodgers are the heavy favorites here. It wouldn't be the first time we've seen a big upset. Toronto is the number 1 seed. They do have home field advantage. Those fans are obviously desperate for a winner in any sense. I guess they had an NBA championship recently, but it's been a real long time since the Blue Jays have been afforded this opportunity. Even it was the last time they won was the last time they were in the World Series, right? I'm remembering this correctly.
I think so, yeah.
So I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, the last Blue Jays moment we've had in the World Series was Joe Carter hitting a walk-off home run. We didn't call them walk-offs back then, did we? But so hopefully if it's even half as intriguing, that would be wonderful. You can also, watch the World Series on Fox 1, streaming on Fox 1. You can watch NFL games streaming on Fox One. Start your 7-day free trial today. Offers are subject to change. Go to Fox One for complete terms and conditions. All right, Patrick. Let's get back to talking Cubs and who could be a potential target for this team. Here's I think something that we've talked about a lot over this past year. Really, they started the season in Japan. It was a big focus for the two of us, and something that we dug into. And look, going over to Japan and having your, I guess, presence felt was important for this front office. The Dodgers are going to be number one, but it's a smaller group of teams that you're competing with. So it's not just obviously Shota Imanaga and Seiya Suzuki matter for the Cubs and their ability to show like, hey, look, we have a nice presence here in Japan. I think something interesting, and you brought this up, and I think it's fascinating. It's not just Japanese players that they're out there scouting. And a name that you heard, and I looked up his numbers. I remember this name, first round draft pick years ago out of high school. Foster Griffin has some really good numbers out in the NPB. And how old is he? He's going to be 30. He's going to enter his age 30 season, or he just turned 30 2 months ago. Lefty. I think he fits this. It kind of fits the Cubs to a T. Not going to be crazy expensive. I think that's a great pull on your part, and a name that we need to be keep on our radar at minimum.
Yeah, I mean, he was on their radar before the start of the Tokyo series. Been on their radar for quite some time as the Cubs sort of planted their flag in Asia. That was something that Jed Hoyer made a priority as he took over for Theo Epstein and as they sort of reorganized the front office. And I think for our purposes here, Foster Griffin is not just the target, it's sort of symbolic of that list of names, like might have been a dozen when we were kind of working on one of those stories. And that was all at the time. They didn't know exactly who'd be coming out, and maybe some of these names are staggered, and they kind of look at, classes on a fluid basis of maybe this offseason, maybe the following offseason. But, Griffin follows a trend that we've seen of guys, who don't make it in the States and need a chance to reset, a chance to focus, a change of scenery. Maybe they mature overseas. I don't know exactly his individual story, but I think enough of these success stories have happened that you sort of have to be in that market and be open to those possibilities. Now, I don't think the Cubs have as good of an advantage, with an American-born player. Obviously, they've sort of carved out this space of, what was Jed's phrase, like Seiya, Shota, and many more. This is a little different, but I think, you saw with their investment in Shota that they had a lot of context, they had a lot of data, they had a lot of eyes on him to where they could be nimble and pounce, when he sort of lingered on the free agent market maybe a little longer than he had expected. And they had the conviction because they had sort of the people and the process behind it. And I think Foster Griffin will be, part of that next wave that they'll be on this offseason.
Yeah, he makes a lot of sense. It probably won't break the bank. There are players being posted, Japanese players being posted. One name that's probably going to get a lot of buzz is Tatsuya Imai. Big name, could be a big number. price wise. We'll see if the Cubs are involved. We don't know yet. We don't have a good feel on that just yet. Could be priced out of that market, or maybe not. Maybe the numbers aren't as crazy, and they love this guy and then think it's worth the worth whatever the cost may be. There are bats that the Cubs will surely show interest in. And then I think players like Foster Griffin, just we need to keep an eye out on that. Who could bounce back? Who could be looking for a return? And it's not just Japanese league; it's a Korean league as well. It's worth keeping an eye on former draft picks that guys that came over to Japan or Korea and have reinvented themselves. It's certainly something we've been alerted to keep an eye out for. So we'll tell you Cubs fans to do the same. All right. We will be back next week with more episodes of Northside Territory. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I are on top of all things Cubs. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Take care.